In our eyes, wild animals will always have a certain element of mystery. Some of them have an unpleasant reputation. Magicians and witches turned them into evil spirits. But reality contradicts these beliefs. Filmed in the wild without any gimmicks, these notorious or unloved animals are simply magnificent. The first morning mists appear in the woods and rivers. Autumn isn't far behind. At this time of year, legends say the forest is shrouded in mystery and hides all kinds of evil spells. In truth, it encourages one of its most discreet guests to break its reserve. For the moment, we can't hear this great loner yet, and we can barely see it. Its majestic crown reveals its presence, and that's what makes it so imposing. This king of the forest, who seems to embody power and virility, has always been hunted down by man. What's it blamed for? Its taste for young shoots and tree bark. Undoubtedly a pretext to justify hunting it. Its antlers truly make a magnificent trophy. It has long adorned the shields of the rulers, who, for that matter, reserved the privilege of shooting it down. This large animal that can weigh 250 kilos is very impressive, but it's secretive and fearful, and flees at the slightest suspicious noise. In St. Croix Park, Pierre Sanja observes deer all year round. He clearly understands their uniqueness.
Stags live alone. The older they are, the more like a ghost in the forest they are. They're alert to the slightest noise, always on their guard, which is what makes this animal so exciting.
Fascinated perhaps by his presence, man both admires and envies the stag. Hence the many legends that attribute demonic powers to it, and sometimes even enviable virtues.
The power of this voice. It's that of a male ready for battle. Just yesterday, he was still a young fawn. And now, he's the king of this forest. A king wearing a crown. Its branches, resembling those of a tree, make it a symbol of life, longevity, and rebirth. Its antlers must have supernatural powers. Healers use them as aphrodisiacs, ointments to heal wounds, panaceas against spells. But here's another figure. The stag Furfur, who first appeared in the 19th century in a book on demonology. Furfur the Furious, capable of stirring up all the legions of hell to call the devastating fire to his rescue. He wants to defeat the king deer. The dark forces have lost. Furfur returns to his shadows, and the king of the forest keeps his throne.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required. Download Veely now.
In our forest, in solitude, the stag wait for the greatest event of the year, the bellowing season. Another secluded and furtive inhabitant is active in the forests, even in the coldest winter. Usually, you hear it long before you see it. Once the forest has been covered with snow, it's easier to spot. His work betrays it. At the foot of his tree, the chips pile up. It's a black woodpecker. This male is carving a box to shelter his future nest. Not far away, a female watches him. If the male succeeds in seducing her with his building skills, if the future nest suits her, she might even take him as her partner. The male chose a healthy and dry tree to avoid wood diseases and rainwater infiltration that would compromise the survival of the chicks. Claude Maurice, who watches the black woodpecker, lives at the gates of this great bird's estate, a preserved forest in the Vosges Mountains. The black woodpecker likes the mountains, but its range now extends much further west, increasing each year.
I've tried to make students love nature throughout my career as a teacher, and it works well with children. But once you get older, you start being afraid of anything. We're not afraid of what's needed. We're afraid of what's not a problem. The raven is black, the cormorant is black, the blackbirds, the black cats, the black bugs, witches are black at night.
This bird, which makes strange cries, has long been viewed with suspicion. Its plumage is black like the raven's, and in our societies, black is the colour of death. From there, it only has a step to associate the woodpecker with witches.
Not only is he black and wearing a blood-red cap, but he's noisy. This drumming! Doesn't it sound like the noise the witches make on their Sabbaths? One of them once turned into a black woodpecker and began to haunt some of the trees in the forest. A real pair of woodpeckers wanted to make their home in one of these trees, but the witch cast a spell on it. The bird couple who had gone away for a few moments found a very unpleasant surprise when they returned. The entrance to their lodge is covered with a grid. The male can drum like a moving Roman army, but he can't get into his lodge. To be released from the curse, he must find a martagon lily. One petal is enough to blow off the grid. The pair returns to their lodge. In the human imagination, this bird was in turn evil and a victim of evil spells, but always a remarkable architect.
The Vosges offers a rich terrain for naturalists to study. Jan Leversel has been passionate about badgers since the age of 22.
Everyone knows the name badger, the word badger, often in a pejorative way. For example, to say that someone is badgering you. No one actually knows the animal itself. If you ask people on the street, no one actually knows what badgers do.
The badger is nevertheless a fascinating animal, and Jan will help us discover its secret life. We meet these builders at the edge of the forest. The construction site is underground. Badgers go out at the end of the day and start on the earthworks again. Digging the ground, clearing the ground, digging again. They're constantly expanding their underground domain. Their burrow is a remarkable labyrinth. Galleries on several floors leading to 10, 20, sometimes even 50 different exits. Badgers often dig smaller burrows, which serve as a second home. Men have invented many ways to hunt badgers in their galleries, because they cause too much damage to crops and can carry diseases. And the badger is an elusive creature who only comes out at night. That's all it took to ignite the imagination. Since the Middle Ages, its nocturnal habits have been associated with some evil doings. Then you do whatever it takes to get rid of it.
A curious growl. Clawed paw prints. And voila! He waited until nightfall to leave his burrow like a masked bandit. He's not alone. There's a whole clan of evil creatures there. Poor. They engage in strange rituals. They stink. And they're greedy. They eat whatever they come across, plant or animal. Worse, they go in commandos to loot the nests. But the worst and most worrying thing is what they do underground. They dig tunnels to reach the underworld, or lays around. We'll get the hunters to kill these filthy beasts. We're going to skewer them, smoke them out. With claws and teeth, the bandits attack the dogs and try to escape. But we're better hunters, and we'll bring them out of the depths of the earth where they plot with the occult forces. We'll make boots from their fur. With their fat, concoctions against rheumatism. And this is how, by inventing 1,001 defects, men got into the habit of tracking badgers. Fortunately, their ingenious work as a digger saved many lives, and still saves more.
It's a dirty beast by default. It was classified as harmful, and in those days they meant stinking. There's a belief in the hunting world that badgers are a dirty beast, but a hunter won't really be able to tell you why.
Spring urges birds to make their nests with mosses, lichens, twigs. The black woodpecker isn't content with a plant mattress. He wants his nest solid, deep, safe. He digs it with the force of his beak. He's been at work for weeks. In this box, perched 15 meters above the ground, its young will be protected from predators. The female seems definitively conquered. She'll stay close to the nest until the day she moves in. From time to time, she'll examine the site more closely.
This pecker is fascinating because it's the biggest, the heaviest. You can hear it hitting a tree. It's really a powerful bird. He's very shy. He doesn't like to be disturbed. Here he is in his environment, at home.
The green woodpecker also digs a cavity. He's returned to it several years in a row. The black woodpecker prefers to relocate almost every year to avoid being spotted by predators. His cabin gets put to good use, though. Other forest dwellers, like the Tengmalm's owl, will gladly occupy it. The woodpecker is what's called an umbrella species, an animal whose ecological niche allows many others to live or reproduce safely. Squirrels are among the forest dwellers who benefit from the lodges abandoned by the largest of the woodpeckers. Some birds haven't made their nests yet, and time is running out. They wouldn't mind squatting in this brand new cavity, but it's already occupied and well defended. Always on the alert, on the lookout for the slightest intruder, the woodpecker won't let anyone settle here. So here it is. The nest is ready for the female, and the male is finally available for breeding time. Everywhere in nature, seduction can be a big part of reproduction. At the end of the summer, after weeks of solitude, the deer is ready for the big action. He uses all the power of his vocal cords to demarcate his territory. He snorts. He sniffs the air to find the olfactory trail of females in heat. With this brief and hoarse cry, he affirms his presence. The message, bursting with testosterone, is addressed to other males in the area. Because he's not alone in this war of conquest. Other contenders are on the lookout. Everyone is sure they'll soon be the chosen one, the dominant one, the glorious seducer. However, there will only be one winner, a single master of all he plays to honor all the deer in the herd. In St. Croix Park, the transformation of this solitary animal into a rutting stag is being studied.
The deer is going to transform. He'll go from a total lack of interest in sexuality to a total obsession. He goes crazy, totally obsessed with one thing, finding females. We always see the stag like the prince in the middle of his harem, surrounded by females doing his bidding. In fact, totally the opposite. Stags live in groups of single individuals, alone. They have no contact with females, so he'll go sniffing in search of the right smell, namely the smell of the female. The rest of the year, he has no voice. It's only now that he can make a bellow, a very powerful sound. It's really an expression of frustration. He bellows to express his frustration, to impress other males, and not to impress other females, as in popular history. On the contrary, they're rather disturbed. They'll only find it interesting when they're at the height of their heat.
He'll have to wait for the signal, the smell emitted by does when they're sexually receptive.
It's a heavily populated forest. There are a lot of birds of different species. This is a short-toed tree creeper, and he defends his territory by keeping out all the other males in the area. That's why he sings to birds, especially those that are territorial. I'm home, go away, to all those competitors who want to settle down. That's why he rehearses his singing, especially in the early morning. For the last 15 days, the black woodpecker has been singing constantly. He drummed against a dry branch that resonated well. It's really exciting.
The black woodpecker chooses very dry trunks for maximum resonance. His percussions carry more than a kilometre. Under the forest vault, the symphony of birds in love rises in tone. The games of seduction have begun. To please his beauty, the kingfisher brings her an offering. After drumming on and on, the black woodpecker continues its parade. He was obviously convincing. Among deer, the breeding season drags on. In mid-autumn, this male, infused with desire, is still waiting for the does to show their willingness. He no longer eats, drinks very little, remains focused on his only aim, to reproduce. To calm his fervour, he ploughs the vegetation with great blows of his antlers. He's in agony. Younger stags also burn with rutting fever, but with no hope of reproducing before the age of 5 or 6. If deer need to show up and be heard, it's the opposite for badgers. Jan Lebercel has identified an observation site from which he can sometimes film and photograph badgers. He is very careful not to get into the wind. The badgers would smell it immediately.
We don't see them every day. Even if we go there regularly, it's very stealthy. It comes out of its burrow and leaves. For many animals, like foxes, there is a certain emotion when you see a badger coming out of its burrow. I don't know if we have any communication with the badgers. Sometimes, when we're on the lookout, I feel like the badgers know we're here. They're looking at us. They will occupy a lot of the land beyond us. There are behaviors that give me this feeling. It's not scientific. It's an impression that the badgers know that we're there and that we film them without disturbing them.
Their poor eyesight is compensated by excellent hearing and a competitive sense of smell. The slightest noise, the slightest suspicious smell makes them go underground. At night, anything dangerous is sleeping. So are the hunters. That's why badgers prefer to go out in the moonlight to inspect their territory, hunt earthworms, or quench their thirst. In addition to earthworms, insects, and larvae, they eat a wide variety of plants and fruits. Sometimes they also eat frogs, mollusks, and young mice in the nest. Males often venture into the plain with determination. They go in search of another forest, a new home, a new partner. This change of address isn't just a whim. It provides the genetic mixing that's needed to limit inbreeding. This male has already visited a group of badgers living on the other side of the plain. He easily finds his way back. He finds a female there. It takes them a few minutes to recognize each other. Finally, the courting is done. The male leaves quickly. The female then harvests mosses and dead leaves that will be used to line the underground chambers of the burrow. Animals that prefer life in the open air prefer to live in dead tree trunks. The holes in this old birch tree interest a black woodpecker. Only one of these duplexes is already occupied by squirrels. They're obviously not happy with the arrival of this flying tenant. But even though it's not malicious, the woodpecker is stubborn. Trees that naturally die standing are called candles. Larvae and carpenter ants enjoy this soft wood and accelerate its decomposition.
This is a forest on a southern slope, on a great slope abandoned by man. It's a wild forest with a lot of trees dying that we leave to die where they stand. It's a living forest. Who dies and who lives.
Le pic s'installe avec ses... Il a deux doigts devant, deux doigts derrière, et il s'accroche contre le...
The woodpecker clings to the trunk and progresses by resting on its tail. It makes a strong impact with its beak and puts its long, sticky tongue into the holes and hooks the insects to eat them. It splits the bark into pieces. Chips are found everywhere. That's how we detect its presence. When you see it tapping, it's really fascinating. Not everyone sees it. You have to look for it, or be very lucky.
The black woodpecker perceives the slightest movement of thousands of insects hidden under the bark. With its solid beak, it exposes the stumps and traps ants with its long and sticky tongue. With spring, thousands of insects emerge, manna for the young birds that have just hatched. In the black woodpecker's lodge, 3 little ones are clamoring. The male and female take turns supplying them. They regurgitate a very thick insect gruel into the back of each little throat. Thanks to this intensive feeding, the young woodpeckers grow quickly. At the end of May, they're less than a month old and are already ready to take off. The precociousness of the young black woodpeckers enables their parents to raise a second clutch. A first candidate wants to try flying, not realizing that it's make or break. First, it examines this unknown world, vast, dazzling with light, and full of dangers, no doubt. Quite the opposite of the lodge. He still hesitates. His parents encourage him with their screams and drumming. The black woodpecker lives in the world up above, the upper floors of the forest. The world below is the world of badgers. They sometimes go out in broad daylight, but with the greatest of caution. Before going any further, they always sniff the air around them. The young ones were born in this burrow. They're not allowed to leave their rooms yet. Will this beautiful spring day be a good time for their first outing? First of all, the badger gets rid of the dry soil embedded in its coat. Second priority, shaking out its fleas and itchy lice constantly. The badger isn't just a bag of parasites. Mindful of his hygiene, he dug latrines outside the burrow or in a separate gallery. For a long time, we thought the badger was solitary, which made it even more diabolical in the eyes of its critics. In fact, it lives in clans, usually of 3 or 4 individuals. They delouse each other, chew each other, scratch each other. Grooming is done in groups. More than mutual help, it's a way to reconnect and build relationships. About 2 months after their birth, the little badgers emerge from the burrow. They now have a coat thick enough to withstand the cold of the night. They grew up on a cozy little space, warmed by their mother's presence. The 2 white stripes are already clearly visible on their snout, and they look like smaller versions of their parents. Their mother still suckles them and regurgitates food for them. This first outing will be educational. Lesson number 1 is in the form of a game. The mother hides a worm. She wants to train her babies to find their own food. This apprenticeship, which is essential for them to become independent, will last almost 2 months. To signal their membership in the clan, badgers mark each other and mark their domain with the same fragrant secretions. The markings deposited here and there are a means of communication between badgers. The clan lives peacefully. No leader, no power struggle. Life is sweet for badgers. The little ones tumble, jostle, chew each other. It's the age for playing. They play, but never far from the burrow in case they need to go underground quickly if there's any danger. In summer, badgers sometimes sleep outside the burrow. It's not easy to surprise them in their nights under the stars. Let's leave them to their dreams and move a few weeks forward in the calendar to see what the deer are up to.
Les femelles vivent en harde.
Females live in
Donc
herds.
elles forment un groupe.
They form a
assez
large
important.
group. The stag is
Il est
happy
content.
because
Il est content
now
parce
they
qu'il a un
have an
appétit
excessive
sexuel
sexual
démesuré.
appetite.
Quand il arrive
When
sur
he
cette belle
arrives in this
clairière
beautiful
avec les couleurs
clearing with
d'automne,
this group of
et ce
females,
groupe de
he's
femelles,
in
il
heaven.
arrive au paradis.
In
En
reality,
réalité,
it's
ça
more
ressemble
like
à
hell.
l'enfer.
Since in the middle of this paradise, there's already a huge male who's taken up position as the master of the place.
Les femelles sont inaccessibles.
The females are
Ce
inaccessible.
monstre de puissance
This
est là,
mighty bear moss is
très
there,
excité,
very
très
excited,
énervé, très
very
puissant,
angry,
très impressionnant.
very powerful,
Donc,
very
malgré
impressive.
l'excitation que je peux ressentir, je vais d'abord ce qu'on
The
appelle me
females
satelliser
become the
autour de ces
focus of
femelles, elles vont
interest.
devenir vraiment mon centre d'intérêt. Et puis pendant que je me satellise, pendant que je tourne,
And I
pendant
see
que je
other
croise
males
d'autres
prowling
mâles
around
qui attendent
these
leur
same
heure, qui
females,
attendent le moment, qui attendent la
waiting for the
possibilité
opportunity
peut-être
to
de
jostle
bousculer
the
la
hierarchy
ou de
or
pouvoir
to
quand
mate
même
with
à
a
un moment ou
female.
un autre saillir une femelle.
Autumn is well underway, and the excitement is at its height for both large males and the younger ones. The smell of the females in heat has spread through the forest. It is finally time for rutting, and it will be short. The bellowing challenges are multiplying, but there will only be one chosen one. The others are condemned to bellow without ever mating, unless they cheat. The master of all the place seems to have been appointed. He parades in the middle of the herd, proudly displaying his antlers. Nature knows what she's doing. She selects the strongest male to ensure the strongest possible offspring. But he hasn't won yet, because other stags are lusting after the herd. The opponents are measuring each other up. Only the strongest have a chance to defeat the dominant male and win the exclusive privilege of mating with females. A male of the same age and power challenges the dominant one to a duel. Once again, it was the dominant one who won. The challenger will have to wait till next year to try his luck again. As for the males, exhausted by the ordeal of the bellowing season, they return to their solitude. They've lost a lot of weight, but now they can start eating again. And above all, they'll sleep, and sleep some more, to get their health back. This is how life goes in our forests, where the same rituals are repeated indefinitely. Among its dark copses, we can find gems. It's also surprising to hear animals without seeing them. They're smart as elves, not demons. The forest is a benign space. We can enter without fear. It has no trolls, no devils, no hungry wolves. Only creatures that are like it. Beautiful and wild. In our eyes, wild animals will always have a certain element of mystery. Some of them have an unpleasant reputation. Magicians and witches turned them into evil spirits. But reality contradicts these beliefs. Filmed in the wild without any gimmicks, these notorious or unloved animals are simply magnificent. Winter returns, surprising this part of the countryside. Snow is announced for the afternoon. Coated in white, nature seems frozen and shrouded in silence. Time is almost suspended. But for the red fox, time never stops. By day, by night, in rain and snow, it roams its territory. Always busy, relentless, never hibernating. Dressed for the cold with his thick fur, he covers tens of kilometers every day, looking for food. What kind of prey will he flush out in this white desert? Most of the time, he catches voles. Normally, his sharp eyesight and highly developed sense of smell are all he needs to spot them. But these two skills are no use with this kind of snow cover. But he still has one more trump card. He has two big ears, and voles are very chatty. They emit ultrasounds that the fox can detect with amazing clarity. And voila, even in the snow, the chatty voles are found and caught. On average, a fox swallows 6,000 mice, field mice and voles each year. By keeping rodent populations in check, it provides valuable services to farmers. But it still can't get rid of its bad reputation. The French called it goupil in the Middle Ages, and it was and still is the target of unbridled animosity and even cruelty. Why is there so much hate?
Reynard makes the mistake of living close to humans and being interested in the same prey that they hunt. He takes it and piles it in his pantry, away from the villagers. And imagine that when his stock is exhausted and he comes out of his burrow hungry, he doesn't shy away from running after the prey reserved for hunters. He's sly, too. At the slightest alarm, he lurks in the grass or runs away and furtively disappears. Get after Reynard. Let's shoot this stinky thief. The fox is never where you expect him. He's a really sneaky opportunist. And you have to admit, he's very clever. He can handle more than one target at a time. He can flip over a hedgehog with one flick of his paw, then grab a partridge off her eggs, and take them all off to his lair. All his enemies agree he's an insatiable glutton. That's why he's here to loot our chicken coops. Nail a starfish soaked in fox blood to the door, said the elders. It wards off this despicable animal's evil spells. Oh yes, the fox was even thought to be demonic. Your enemy Beelzebub's accomplice was dressed in his skin. Reynard symbolizes excesses, greed, deceit. Prejudices are pervasive. Many people still see the fox as an infamous chicken thief who can't be stopped by traps.
Luckily, the fox has more and more defenders. Frank Wigner is working hard to rehabilitate it.
It was an animal that was accused of all kinds of mischief. Chicken thief, disease vector. In the 70s and 80s, there were problems with rabies, and they just had to be vaccinated. In my opinion, it is more useful than harmful. It can transmit diseases, but it is also an effective barrier against others. It plays a key role as an agricultural support. It cleans the countryside by eating carcasses. It has its role as a predator in our ecosystems.
It is true that the fox lives close to humans and sometimes helps himself into their hen houses, if the door's not properly closed. Sometimes he bites one or two chickens for convenience. But this is far from the number of mice and voles on his hunting list. Because of its petty thieving, the fox has been labelled as a beast to kill. But it plays a crucial role in balancing ecosystems. And without it, the crops would be full of rodents. At night, other meadow dwellers appear. To reveal them, Benoit Dawn puts up a large white sheet illuminated by a mercury vapor lamp.
Les papillons de nuit sont très sensibles au rayonnement.
Moths and butterflies are very sensitive to UV radiation, so we position lamps that emit the widest UV spectrum to attract and trap them
pour
all.
attirer et piéger tous ces papillons. Donc là, on a une femelle qui
Here's a female who got trapped by the sheet.
Une belle femelle
A beautiful female death's head hawk moth
avec un abdomen très
with a
large,
very
très
large
gros.
and fat abdomen.
Les œufs qu'elle aura pondus, je vais
I'll be
pouvoir
able
les,
to breed some of the eggs she
une
lays
partie les
and
garder en élevage,
release the
et
rest
l'autre partie,
into the
je vais pouvoir,
wild.
les relâcher directement dans la nature.
In his attic, Benoit has set up his hawk moth breeding center.
Donc il est originaire d'Afrique.
It's a native of
Il est
Africa.
de passage chez nous à la période
It's come to us for the summer.
En fait, c'est un
It's a migrating
lepidoptère qui est
insect.
migrateur. Il fuit.
It's fleeing the drought in Africa to come and breed here.
Chez nous. C'est un papillon qui est
This moth
génétiquement
is
fait
made
pour
for
le
travel
voyage et
and
surtout le
flight.
vol. C'est un papillon qui
Very
est très robuste,
robust.
qui est fuselé. De toute façon, on le voit au
Tapered.
niveau forme. C'est un papillon qui va avoir
It's going to be shaped
la
like
forme
a
d'un avion,
fighter plane.
plutôt un avion de chasse, donc qui va fendre l'air. Et c'est donc un papillon qui va pouvoir sans trop d'efforts, c'est-à-dire sans
It'll
trop
be able to
résister
travel
au vent,
long
pouvoir
distances
parcourir
without
différentes
much effort.
distances, en dépensant le moins d'énergie possible. Les femelles
The
ont
biggest challenge
absolument
will be to
besoin
feed it.
d'avoir le ventre plein pour pouvoir être performante à la ponte. Donc le plus gros défi, ça va être de
We're going to get
l'alimenter,
the moth to
de
stick
façon
its
manuelle.
proboscis in
On
the
va
honey
venir chercher
solution.
la trompe du sphinx pour la plonger directement dans la solution miellée. En s'alimentant, le papillon va faire chauffer ses ailes pour
As it feeds,
le départ.
it'll warm its wings so it's ready to
Dès qu'il
go.
aura fini de s'alimenter, comme ça, il est opérationnel pour repartir directement.
In nature, the moth feeds on honey that it sucks up in the hives. But tonight, it's not the food that this one's interested in. He crossed the Mediterranean in one go, covering 500 kilometers without stopping. He takes no time to rest, obsessed by the mission that led him here, to reproduce. Guided by the pheromones and ultrasounds emitted by this female, he performs his task as quickly as possible. The skull pattern on his back and his intense appetite for honey from the hives were enough to make him a hated moth. The legends presenting him as a messenger of bad omen are persistent and, of course, unjustified.
The intruder emerges from the night, silent, wearing his gloomy mask and fitted with a proboscis to steal honey from bees. The hawk moth is greedy, but that's the least of its flaws. Acherontia atropos. Its name alone evokes the grim reaper. It embodies the soul of the dead flitting off to the afterlife. We were able to pin it down to investigate it. Its record is loaded. Judge for yourself. In the caterpillar state, it eats the leaves of plants as evil as Datura or Belladonna. No wonder the devil sends it as a messenger when he wants to summon witches. and tells it to whisper the name of those who are going to die in their ears. The most malicious tongues even say it brings death, even if, in truth, it actually sows life in nature. There is a myth that Psyche, a princess who became a goddess, came up from the darkness through the wings of a moth. Like her, the death's head hawk moth descended into the depths of the earth to be reborn as something even more beautiful. Superstitious people still claim that it has a sinister power to give people nightmares while they sleep. Seeing this dark messenger appear in the moonlight bodes no good, especially if you hear its plaintive cry.
It's early spring on the meadow. Tractors and scythes haven't passed yet. Nature flourishes freely. The tall grass still hides the discreet little people who live in these wide open spaces. The buzzard has found a high place to observe its hunting ground. No movement escapes its piercing gaze. Look, good news for birds of prey. The hares have been born. Already just a few days old, their big ears betray them. Instead of digging a burrow, the hare camps on the ground in a single hollow. Quickly made, but easily spotted by all kinds of predators. Its eyesight isn't very good. Fortunately, its impressive ears, which can be adjusted at will, keep it up to date on everything that's happening. It's always on the alert. And if danger strikes, its long front legs will propel it towards the thickets at more than 60 kilometers an hour. The European hare is used to our cultures, yet we don't know him well enough. He has some secrets that Jean-Sébastien Guiton and Ninon Denis would like to uncover.
The hare is afraid because the outside world has not his best interests at heart, so he needs to hide to survive. It's really a challenge for all species, and especially for the hare. It's somehow his principal characteristic. He has more than one string to his bow to defend and protect himself. Either he hides, and when he thinks he's been discovered, he quickly flees, because his morphology allows him to disappear very quickly.
In the Picardy Plains, the researchers set traps. There's no need to hide the cage or put bait in it. The hare is so curious that it can't help but visit this unusual object placed on the ground. To avoid stressing the hare, it's better to darken the cage. They're going to put a transmitter collar on it, the only way to track the hares as they move around. The routine exam will improve population data. But the transmitter collar should reveal more precise details about the hare's life.
This study allows us to estimate the survival rate of these young animals.
Et puis aussi
to determine the causes of mortality,
dans quel type de culture ils vivent, le jour, la nuit.
to see how they use their environments,
Comment ils sélectionnent
how they live,
leur lieu
how
de
they
vie,
eat.
leur lieu de gîte, leur lieu d'activité d'alimentation, etc. Et donc ça permet de mieux comprendre.
It helps us understand better what is important for the hare population
Pour les lièvres. Et donc de faire des recommandations ensuite éventuellement dans la gestion des
and to make
populations,
recommendations
d'identifier des
for managing these animals.
qui auraient pris une importance plus forte qu'avant.
His curiosity led him into a truly unusual adventure, and now all he wants to do is to go back into hiding. An animal that hides itself at every turn has unavoidable secrets to protect. The hare is too cunning to be honest. He must be messing with witches.
In Japan, it's only known for its fertility. When the moon is full, a hare is said to descend from the sky, run to the sea, and play in the waves before reproducing abundantly. In other cultures, it has been said that the hare can turn into a witch. He was stigmatized for his habit of fornicating at all costs, accused of being depraved and destroying harvests. In the past, witches turned into hares would thwart the spell with this incantation. Hare, hare, may God take care of you. I'm in the form of a hare now, but in a moment I'll be a woman. Cursed here, he's an inspiration elsewhere. The Indians say that a hare had been eaten by a hungry old man who was none other than the king of the gods. He placed the remains of the hare on the moon so that his sacrifice would remain visible. In our countryside, it was especially important not to cross the hare on its way. It was bad luck. Different organs of the hare entered the medieval pharmacopoeia and the witches' books. Its gallbladder for the wounds of lepers, its brain to make babies' teeth emerge faster, its blood to help women in childbirth. Still, other organs gave the best love potions, aphrodisiac drinks, and fertility potions. The moon, which watches over the cycles of death and rebirth, has protected the hare. Thanks to her, his next leap will lead him to the light of day.
Now firmly in place, spring has brought back nature's most harmonious features. Back from Africa, the red-backed shrike finds its perch again, from where it can see the wonderful transformation. The emergence of wildflowers that compete elegantly to attract insects. The appetizing green of the brand new grass. Short ears, white tail, it's a wild rabbit. It digs its burrow in the meadow. It can't be confused with the hare, which has long, black-tipped ears. Even though it spends its days and nights outdoors, the hare doesn't have a dewdrop on its coat in the morning. It also cleans itself daily to remove fleas, moths, ticks, and other vermin that live in its fur. As they move around, hares stay alert to the odors left on the ground. They carefully avoid the musky traces of the fox they're not keen on meeting. But strangely enough, the two species sometimes coexist in the same meadow. The fox, in any case, wouldn't presume to hunt a hare, knowing how fast it is. For the hare, the danger usually comes from the sky. The buzzard locates its prey from a distance of more than 100 meters. Its visual acuity is exceptional. The safest way for the hare to parade is to blend into this setting that matches its coat. With its ears down, it stays motionless till the danger has passed. It's rare for a buzzard to catch a hare. It mostly throws itself on small rodents. This makes it a valuable ally for farmers, just like the fox. Hares live almost all year round in solitude, except during the rutting season, which brings them together once a year on the meadow. The males, the jacks, will fight for the favors of a Jill, the first female in heat who'll join them in the arena. Normally so peaceful, hares break their usual reserve to face each other in a spectacular fistfight. The stakes are clear. The goal is to win the exclusive privilege of mating with the Jill. By exposing themselves in this way, they forget their sacrosanct rules of caution. But it's for a good cause, preserving the species. Speed races, kicks, bites, the jacks begin with a qualifying event. The objective is to oust the weakest males so that only one remains. The winner redoubles his efforts against the last contenders. He's left alone on the track for his one-on-one with the Jill. Although the courting can last for hours, its final outcome is very cursory. It's over in almost no time at all. Under the leaves of a privet on the edge of the meadow, small white pearls have appeared. The female death's head hawk moth has laid tiny eggs, 1.5 millimeters in diameter. After a week, the shell is slashed by a robust jaw. It belongs to a caterpillar measuring 5 to 6 millimeters. This membrane is full of nutrients. The caterpillar's first instinct is to devour it so it can build up its strength. This caterpillar has a strange horn at the end of its abdomen, like a spur pointing up to the sky, but absolutely harmless. Then what is it for? Maybe just to deter predators from attacking it. The caterpillar can move in any position. Its muscular legs stick to the leaves like suction cups. And now its mandibles start doing their job. It has to eat, eat, eat relentlessly to grow as fast as possible. In its nutritious bush, the caterpillar crawls wherever it wants, but sometimes at the risk of slipping on the glossy leaves. One stumble and it's gone. Luckily, it's got a rope to rappel back up. Besides saving it from a fatal fall, this silk thread also serves as a ladder to get back to its pantry. As the death's head hawk moth caterpillar force feeds itself, its suit starts getting tight. Three days after hatching, it's already doubled in size, and it's starting to shed its first skin. Of course, it keeps its horn upright like a radio antenna. The skin contains proteins it needs for growing. Since growing is its one and only objective, the caterpillar nibbles at it. There have been other births on the meadow. Fox cubs have arrived in this den. The fox gives birth to an average of 4 to 6 cubs, depending on how much prey it has on its territory. The pups usually stay at the entrance of the burrow, ready to take shelter there if there's any danger. For now, the meadow is the unknown, a space where it's tempting but risky to venture. The hawk moth caterpillar doesn't know every nook and cranny of its territory either. It's only 20 millimeters long, and this privet is as large as a forest for it. If it encounters a sibling or cousin, it doesn't back down and let it pass. With each one stubbornly defending its own turf, it can only end in a fight. It might be funny to see caterpillars going heads-on at each other, but in their world, there's nothing more serious than defending a privet leaf. One of them finally surrenders and turns back. In the summer, new dangers face the meadow dwellers. This predator doesn't come out of the sky like the buzzard, and its weapon leaves little chance of salvation. There are also frightening machines whose jaws sometimes crush hares that have been surprised. Finally, there's a third threat, which can't be avoided. Pesticides and their disastrous impact on animal populations. The hare is fragile, like every link in the meadow's biodiversity. The fox returns to her den. Her cubs have been waiting for her to come and feed them. She still suckles them, but she's also starting to share her prey with them. She stores food for herself and her cubs, out of foresight, not greed, as some believe. The whole time her cubs are growing, the fox hunts from morning to night. Relying on her expertise, she confines herself to small mammals: field mice, mice, voles.
It's not an animal specialized in capturing small mammals, but it has a gift for that. It usually hunts by hearing. Foxes don't have the same perception as man. They pick up sounds that we cannot hear. They manage to pick up the noises of small animals that move underground. So he rummages, he walks, he moves constantly. And as soon as he locates the ultrasounds of these small animals, he stops, pricks his ears up, and makes a jump called the pounce from above. He jumps on his prey, catches it, and bites it.
In the burrow, the cubs start getting frustrated, and hunger makes them impatient. But their mother doesn't let up. The buzzard seems to envy her this prey, but the fox won't let it go. On the way back, she takes the time to redraw the boundaries of her territory with scented beacons. So many do not enter signs for other foxes. The den is empty. Where are the cubs? Their games have taken them a bit further away than usual. Before they're 2 months old, the cubs venture out on the meadow and beyond. As they wander, they naively approach their main predator. Humans, and they'll soon learn to be suspicious of them. The young foxes spend several months in this joyful, carefree state of mind, curious about everything. Nothing scares them. Well, almost nothing. They're training to hunt mice without actually managing to catch anything. And above all, they play till they're out of breath, from morning to night. The only way to acquire the reflexes and agility of a good hunter. In the middle of summer, the haymaking season starts. The farmer harvests the fodder to feed his livestock in the winter. For mice and other small rodents, it's a real cataclysm. They're totally confused, and predators know how to take advantage of it. Buzzards and foxes locate their prey without any difficulty. The meadow becomes a free-for-all. All you have to do is help yourself. Because it only hunts small prey and has to roam its territory to find a lot of them, the fox is considered a detestable lurker, except in the eyes of its defenders.
It's an animal that's hunted, trapped, all year round, for reasons that aren't necessarily justified. I want to be the devil's advocate. I want to defend him. I find it exciting. Could watch it for hours, hunting, growing in the wild with the smell of cut grass. I'm in heaven. I'm fascinated by this creature. It's an animal that can live anywhere. It lives in all environments, forest, monoculture, city, desert. It is an animal that adapts to everything, very well and very quickly. That's why, despite the hardship it's been through, it's still around.
Far from the turmoil, perched in its refuge, the death's head hawk moth caterpillar has grown even more. Nibbling relentlessly on its privet leaves, it had to molt 4 times to get rid of its coat, as it became too tight. Now it's wearing its best outfit. It's 20 days old and almost 12 centimeters long. It's not full because it hasn't yet stored enough energy for the challenge ahead. The privet began to suffer from its voracious appetite. Its leaves disappear one by one. If the caterpillar carries on gorging like this, it'll soon be stripped bare. It still allows itself a few breaks to digest. It then adopts a strange position somewhat like that of the Sphinx. The French call it a sphinx moth because of this. After these short naps, its jaws go to work again. But soon, this intensive chewing will stop. The caterpillar abandons the nourishing plant it's been stripping for weeks. It's reached its maximum size. For the next step in its development, it goes underground. This is where its metamorphosis will take place. A crawling creature that buries itself to change form, isn't that a little bit of witchcraft? Let's forget the legends that present the death's head hawk moth as a monster, and instead admire the extraordinary process that leads to its birth. One of those sleight of hand tricks that nature shrouds in secrecy.
The death's head hawk moth caterpillar has dug a gallery, like a mole, and at the bottom of this it builds a pupal chamber by cementing the soil around it with liquid secretions. For a while, it seems as inert as a mummy, but we call it a pupa.
And in reality, it's very much alive. The pupa's transforming. A creature will emerge from this armor as if by magic, quite different from the one that was buried 5 weeks ago. The imago, the adult moth, slowly emerges. A death's head hawk moth comes to life. It uses as much energy as it can to get out of this grip. Once it can move freely, its first reflex is to go out into the open air. The most urgent thing now is to spread its wings before they dry out. As long as the Sphinx remains suspended, blood under pressure slowly flows into the wing ribs, breathing life into them. The moth lets its wings swell, and it opens them wide. Tapered body, flexible wings for acrobatic flights, skull and crossbones, this fighter aircraft has a wingspan of 13 centimeters. The engine still needs to be heated. The moth's wings buzz long and loudly before its first flight. Its flight logbook will soon send it back south to escape the winter up north. Then it'll return to get married right here, where it was born. The meadow isn't just a natural space that people exploit out of necessity. In its tall grasses, thickets, and groves, it also hides animals that play a crucial role in this ecosystem. Surprising, fascinating, harmless, no matter what people say, they benefit from being known and respected. In our eyes, wild animals will always have a certain element of mystery. Some of them have an unpleasant reputation. Magicians and witches turn them into evil spirits, but reality contradicts these beliefs. Filmed in the wild without any gimmicks, these notorious or unloved animals are simply magnificent. The ponds and lakes of our countryside are like mirrors of the sky above. But the still water hides so many mysteries, so many strange or unknown animals. At the end of this winter, the forest floor is starting to warm up. The toad has felt the change. The time has come to migrate to the wetlands. It's a long journey when your progress is this slow. He travels at night, guided by the Earth's magnetic fields, and also the stars. so they say. But what we don't say about the toad, that it's ugly, that it's a creature of the devil, an evil being. It's said to haunt dark forests and their secret ponds. Its repulsive appearance has a number of wacky beliefs. For a while, the toad was the most emblematic animal in witchcraft.
It's a long way, Toad. You want to get back to the pond for one of your orgies, Where are you hiding, you who know the secrets of the stars? Oh, there you are. Come on over here. Come on, we'll baptize you in our own way. You're one of us since you're ugly. You can join in our Sabbath. So, you couldn't find a princess to turn you into a Prince Charming? Come on, you'll be more useful in our cauldron. Preparation for a balm against rheumatism, pneumonia, burns and wounds. Aromatic herbs, lemongrass, dried flowers, and a whole and living toad. By Satan, how repulsive you are. To think you're doing wonders curing skin diseases. A toad liver buried for 9 days, then cooked in a pot, applied to oozing warts. The result is amazing. Wake up, Toad. You had centuries of nightmares. Now it's over.
It's the beginning of spring, the time of the great awakening for all the animals that have spent the winter slumbering. Bats live in caves and old mines. If we want to observe them, we have to approach them as discreetly as possible.
Être sous terre, c'est magique.
Being underground is magical.
On est tranquille, le téléphone portable
It's so peaceful.
Donc on n'est pas ennuyé. Et c'est magique, mais
you have to enter it with respect, because the animals are sleeping,
dorment.
and you don't want to wake them up.
Et surtout de ne pas les réveiller.
Bats only have a few grams of fat to get through the winter. If they wake up early, it would be fatal to their energy expenditure. These large horseshoe bats, rhinolopes, are in energy-saving mode. They've adapted their temperature to that of the cave, barely 6 or 7 degrees. They breathe very slowly, with long apneas of 15 to 20 minutes to spare their reserves. After 5 to 6 months of hibernation, bats wake up, first making small movements to warm their muscles. They'll leave the cave to look for a summer dormitory.
They gradually leave the underground environments, each species leaving at a predetermined period. The small mouse-eared bats first. The larger mouse-eared bat will leave very early, around March, when it's still winter, and then the last ones to leave are the Jeffries bats in mid-May.
bats are very elegant flyers. But this winged but featherless creature still scares us, especially since it always appears quietly. It only knows the dark night and wears the color of death. It spends its days upside down, hiding its demonic spirit under its wings. The bat has been accused of carrying dangerous germs and of getting tangled in people's hair so they can't get them out. Humans are so quick to suspicion. Anyway, we made it into an evil animal.
Oh, you, creature half mouse, half bird. You who lives hanging by your feet, you can only be a monster. Your silent and chaotic flight, your nighttime comings and goings, all this comes from witchcraft and satanic forces. Come here, I need you. You fly like a ghost around houses, your mouth full of the blood of your prey. Vampire. Watch out, or you'll end up nailed to a barn door. Come to my house instead. I want to unlock the secret that guides you through the darkness. And then I need your ashes for my love potions. I need your blood to wash my eyes. Nasty bird with wings of skin. Do you have enough blood in your stomach for my diabolical lotion? Bat blood, belladonna roots, ashes, parsley, laudanum, cow parsley, mandrake, henbane, black poppy, and myrrh. You won't escape me tomorrow night, you witches familiar.
In the forest, the toad continues its journey, moving only by night to go unnoticed. On the way, he meets someone. A solitary female, an opportunity to embrace. He doesn't hesitate. He climbs on the female's back and grabs her under the armpits. This typical toad mating technique is called Amplexus. Perched on her back, the male sits comfortably till the end of the journey, when they reach the pond. In the final stretch, the toads have another Ariadne's thread to guide them. The particular smell of the pond where they were born. They've remembered it. Females that arrive with a male on their backs are getting ready to lay eggs. But it seems winter is taking its time to leave. The snow is piling up, the temperature is dropping, and in the pond, everything is frozen. Egg-laying is delayed. But the males remain attached to their females. they'll wait together until the weather improves. After this surprise intrusion, winter is finally gone and spring is coming. At this time, Owlet performs the same ritual every morning, dropping toads in the pond.
It's known to be ugly, scary, but it's also known to be a Prince Charming. Everyone has different feelings about it. But I don't see why we should be scared of a toad.
Owlet installs a rather unusual traffic sign. Attention, toads crossing.
We've had fairly cold temperatures for a long time. The toads were in the starting blocks, then they came out all of a sudden. We went from 0 to 600, 900, then 1,000 toads. Now it's coming down. Yesterday we had 41. Today we'll see how it goes. There are couples.
Yes, noted.
Yes, then a male, a female. They will go through a lot of hardships. On the one hand, it may be sudden drops of temperature that will slow down the migration again. But the most important impacts are related mainly to humans. The toads will have to cross the roads, and there is a high rate of crushing. Then there are 3.3 kilometers of nets that are set up with a bucket system. When they go out, they will face the net. So their instinct is to go along this net to try and find a breach. Instead of this breach, they will find a bucket that will be buried at ground level, and the toads will fall in. Then, every morning, volunteers or the Green Brigade pick up these buckets. We take the toads which we transport to the other side of the road. You really need to pay attention to the place where you put them. Often it will be places where there are hedges which have been cleared with tree stumps so they can shelter. Because one of the two factors that can impact populations is predation. If you leave about 30 toads in the same open space, you will see birds of prey and other predators that will come to serve themselves in this pantry.
The males who don't yet have a partner are on the breach, determined to comb this water forest to find a female. Soon their quest becomes a frenzy. They have to pass on their genes at all costs. Competition is becoming fierce. Some males find a female available that they won't let go of soon. But there won't be enough for all of them. We've gone from frenzy to orgy. The toads jump on anything that moves, sometimes even without knowing if they're straddling a male or a female. Or even another species. A poor marsh frog is the victim of this madness. Males have mistaken it for a female toad. Beneath this grotesque melee, the frog suffocates because it can't get to the surface to breathe. The laughing frog eventually suffocates to death under the assault of its suitors. Males that have reached their destination cling to their conquest while they wait for the eggs to be laid. Ponds and lakes were formed during the last ice age, 10,000 years ago. In the Middle Ages, man domesticated these natural sites to develop fishing or to soak wicker. These wetlands are home to an extraordinary biological richness. In spring, with the green frogs croaking in the background, nature wakes up. The loudest members of the choir are the males, who play with their vocal sacs to charm the females. The grass snake can't hear the frog singing. It's deaf. But it feels the vibrations and has an exceptional sense of smell. This male felt the pheromones deposited by a female in a hurry to mate. It has followed the trail through the reeds and is nearly at the goal. The male's approach is very delicate. The two bodies intermingle slowly and will remain intertwined for several hours. The snake's silence and discretion have made imaginations wander and fueled the most fanciful beliefs.
When God created the eel, the devil shaped the snake, says a Breton legend. Here she is, stealthy and sneaky like the evil one. They say it haunts ponds, elusive like the Loch Ness monster, that its mouth is a monstrous abyss where its prey disappears by the hundreds. When the snake falls asleep, it dreams of its genesis. In ancient beliefs, the snake and all its cousins once had legs. The Christian Bible told us that because the snake tempted Eve, it was cursed among all the beasts and condemned to crawl. The snake has been accused of poisoning the streams where it swims, drinking from the udders of cows and laying its eggs in the bellies of babies. It's also said to have been the accomplice of Ain, the demon of fires. And can you believe that the snake caused so many cries of horror that it stayed deaf forever? But it will also be seen as having positive virtues. Isn't good the opposite of evil? Evil and good, disease and healing, two intertwined snakes symbolize medicine. And here is the Ouroboros, the symbol of eternity without beginning or end. The snake also became valuable when it woke up from its sleep and changed its skin. The healers used its molt to make a tie for sore throats, herbal tea to heal the intestines, or a belt to help women give birth.
With the arrival of the sunny days, the bats have left their winter caves. Females settle in warmer lodgings that are spacious enough for them to come and go easily. Barns, abandoned attics, or bell towers. A colony of large horseshoe bats has chosen this quiet attic. Mating took place in the autumn, but the females have delayed ovulation until now. Bats have this rare ability to delay fertilization, so that they can give birth to their single pup when the insects hatch. That way, they can make sure they fill up with plenty of protein to suckle them. For about 10 days, the newborn clings constantly to the mother's belly, warm under her wings. Afterwards, it waits patiently for her every time she goes hunting. The little horseshoe bats take their first flight around the age of 1 month, without a net and without any lessons. A bat can easily hang by only one leg if it needs the second one for something else. Like grooming, for example. In the summer, Laurent Arthur treats bats in his infirmary. He just found one that was injured by a cat, its main predator.
When you work with bats and show them to children, the first reaction is, "It's so cute." In the past, when parents scared their children with the famous stories of bats getting caught in their hair, it was done to prevent girls from going out at night. It's a legend, but there are very few people who have a real fear, and they really need to hear the truth. Americans have had a huge problem. They have white nose syndrome, not the Americans themselves, but bats. They have a white fungus that affects them and kills them by the million. Economically, it means that millions of dollars have been lost. Bats did the job for free by eating the insects that attack the crops. Except that now there are millions of bats that have died. So we have to put pesticides back in to make up for the bats. Some people have tried to calculate the value of a bat. I find it more pleasant to see them live, because it brings about dream. And dreams are priceless.
Hunting is something that bats do very well. The approach of dusk signals that it's time to hunt. From now on, the night belongs to them. A sonar system gives them a three-dimensional view. They emit ultrasounds that are echoed back by the solid elements around them. Their brains analyze the echo at full speed and translate it into images. This is how they identify and locate insects, or the places they're interested in, like that old wash house where they like to quench their thirst. What does nature look like in broad daylight? Bats, animals of the night, don't know that. They don't know that spring has repainted everything green, and that, like them, many animals were waiting for the sunny days to reproduce. In ponds, pools, ponds, and even in the smallest puddles, life pulsates again. The toads are ready for Act 2 of their reproduction. The female is already having contractions, announcing the expulsion of the eggs. The male, who has been riding her for several days, will finally justify his privileged position. Clinging tightly to her, he lays his seed on the eggs as they appear. Long garlands of black pearls decorate the bottom of the pond. 8,000 to 10,000 eggs will be laid in one day. The eggs are coated with the same mucus that toads secrete to moisten their skin or protect it from bacteria. This toxic liquid deters fish from eating these precious necklaces.
Some animals specialize in preying on toads. The skunk, he understands everything. The toad is toxic, but if I remove the skin and skin it, I can eat it without risk. So he'll reverse the skin and remove it to eat the inside. Sometimes I get to a pond and I find a lot of skin turned inside out all over. It was the skunk that ate them, directly from the pantry.
Another of their predators uses a different method. This field rat has bagged some loot by the pond. To avoid being poisoned by their skin, he lets the toads he's caught lie for a while. And he comes to pick from his pantry when he's hungry. After several months of fasting, this grass snake needs to eat. There's no way it's going to attack this water hen, but its eggs, hidden in the reeds, would do the trick. The proteins in the eggs will help it to regain its strength. This nest looks like a well-protected camp. The water hen watches over her nest like a precious treasure that she vigorously defends against any aggressor. Even when it's hungry, the snake must be patient if it wants to act by surprise, as it usually does. In the pond, everyone watches its silent movements suspiciously.
The snake is probably one of the animals with the most powerful symbolic role in almost all human civilizations for thousands of years. It's an animal with essentially positive attributes. It was life before death, knowledge before ignorance, a virgin woman before brutality. It's so beautiful that all over the world, goldsmiths use the snake motif to make jewelry. We do very pretty things with snakes. A boar is less aesthetic, less beautiful.
In this complete bioreserve, Xavier Bonnet and his fellow researchers are studying the snake's way of life. Under the plates they've installed on the ground, reptiles slip into protection from birds of prey.
C'est un subadulte. Petit esculape, sympa. Vous voulez voir, Xavier?
Ben oui. It's got small prey in its belly. It's probably babies of voles or mice, one or two. You can feel small bumps in its stomach.
Inside the reserve, the grass snake population is stable. But outside, intensive agriculture and the destruction of hedges have caused it to decrease sharply. With the summer coming and the warmer days, this small aquatic world is changing. The toad eggs hatched a few days ago. The tadpoles already have gills and a long tail to move around looking for food. Their mouth sucks in microparticles deposited on the vegetation. They eat all day long to grow up to the stage of their final metamorphosis. One day, tiny four-legged creatures came out of the water. Miniature toads. They're going to migrate like their parents, just in the opposite direction, from the pond to the forest. It's a very rough path for such little runners. The giant twigs are followed by impassable grasses. But they're determined to go all the way. And if they don't end up in a heron's beak, they can soon hide and finish growing under the dead leaves of the undergrowth. Bats also seek refuge from anything that threatens them.
There
are road-related threats, environmental threats, and the animals cling to this bridge, which has probably been occupied since its construction. The small swarm of 30 animals is probably the one that's been there since the structure was built. It's as if we've installed artificial cottages.
C'est très important de préserver ces ponts parce que si on fait le bilan,
it is very important to preserve these bridges because around here, all the colonies of Daubenton's bats live in these types of structures.
Essentiel au maintien de cette espèce.
At this time of year, the mayflies transform. After 3 years at the bottom of the river as larvae, they emerge as airborne insects. Delicious prey for bats that have made their home under the arches of this old bridge. By day, you can't see anything. You have to wait until night to see them come out of the gaps where they were sheltering from the light. These bats are Daubenton's bats. They regain possession of their night territory and go hunting. The mayflies fly in dense clouds over the water. For the bats that relish this, it's a kind of aerial plankton. To capture these insects, they make a low flyby. Not many insects escape them. Daubenton's bats ingest a lot of mosquitoes, but also moths that are harmful to crops. They play an essential role as natural insecticides to limit the use of chemical treatments. Let's keep them a place under the old bridges. Let them live in peace in the barns. Let's avoid damaging their existence. They'll return the favor. The water hen watched over her brood well. All the eggs hatched. She and her partner take turns feeding the chicks. Couples sometimes manage to raise 4 broods per year. The chicks begin to explore their aquatic universe, under good escort. The grass snake, which has stayed nearby, has still not eaten anything. It tries again today, but finds the nest empty. The brood has gone for a walk. A little water chicken would make it very happy. But the parents are still just as vigilant, counting and recounting their chicks after each outing. The snakes lay all their eggs in the same pile of manure. Horse manure gives off a gentle warmth that encourages their development. Five to 10 weeks after the eggs are laid, depending on the outside temperature, the baby snakes split the elastic shell where they grew up. The sight of these snake nests has caused many phobias. These vile little snakes, it was said, would slip into you while you slept to eat you from within. Their forked tongue was considered a stinger that could inject a deadly venom. In reality, baby grass snakes, like their parents, don't inject venom. As for their tongue, it's an extraordinary sensory organ. As soon as they hatch, barely 15 centimeters long, they disperse in search of their first territory. In the wilderness reserve, grass snake babies are measured, sexed, identified, and released until their next capture, so that their development can be studied. The snake in the pond is still looking for prey. Having had no luck stealing a chick, it arrives on the side where the green frogs are. Its best chance is to arrive a little before the breeding season, when the males are all busy fighting for their territory and not very attentive to what's happening around them. The frog tadpoles have to go and breathe on the surface. For want of anything better, the snake can make do with these. But it's hungry enough to eat an ox, or at least an adult frog. Like all snakes, the grass snake sunbathes a bit before any effort. A thermoregulation session that restores enough energy to go hunting. It has identified its victim, which it will locate more precisely with its tongue and the chemosensitive organ that it's attached to. As it watches the frog, the snake itself could become prey. An ermine is on the lookout. The ermine eats the snake that eats the frog. Everyone has a place in the food chain, and it's an important place.
They play quite important roles in nature. Predators regulate the levels below them. Without snakes, other species would start invading.
It's time to attack. The frog swallows a fly. And the snake? Would it swallow the frog? This one or another, it doesn't matter. The pond is full of them. The frog sees far and has reflexes. Jumping is its best defense. In legends, the snake may be a demon, but in real life, it has the patience of an angel, and it's able to rethink its strategies. If it can't catch the frog on the surface of the water, it'll try from below. The hungry snake has finally got hold of its green frog. Considering the rate at which it hunts, it eats only 8 to 10 animals of this size in 1 year. Definitely not the stuff of legend. All it needs to do is return to the sun to digest its meal. Ponds and pools really don't have much to worry about. They have no witches, no Beelzebub, no bloodthirsty vampires. If we take the time to stop for a moment and look at everything swarming around the grass and reeds, it becomes obvious that we need to preserve this life. In our eyes, wild or domestic animals will always have a certain element of mystery. Some of them have an unpleasant reputation. Magicians and witches turned them into evil spirits. But reality contradicts these beliefs. Filmed in the wild without any gimmicks, these notorious or unloved animals are simply magnificent. In the middle of summer, afternoons are quiet on this small farm. Only the farm cats are restless. They're innumerable and can be found all over the property. They're curious about everything, fearless, and invade all the places with perfect confidence. Neither completely wild nor truly domestic, the farm cat navigates at will between barns, livestock buildings, and surrounding fields. His wild ancestor in Africa had a similar life. More or less domesticated, but autonomous. The cat on our farms is difficult to approach and fiercely independent. Both predator and opportunist, it hunts small rodents without disdaining the abandoned food it finds here and there on the farm. Its independence, its penetrating gaze, its habit of prowling around on felted paws, it didn't take much more to demonize the cat. Black cats have inspired the most bizarre superstitions. Crossing a black cat, especially if it comes from the left, will bring you bad luck. In the Middle Ages, this and many other persistent beliefs led to their systematic persecution. So much so that the species almost died out. Even if we no longer believe in this nonsense, black cats are rarely welcome. Popular legends aren't completely erased from our imagination.
A black animal, the color of the devil, that hunts at night and sees in the dark. Nothing could create worse fears and superstitions. Beware of the black cat. He's willful, sneaky, thieving, and agile enough to help himself to every shelf in your pantry. And if he settles in your house, he'll be the master and you the slave. He's even more deceitful than the snakes he likes to eat. Good hunters' cats have earned their badge of honor elsewhere. 2,000 years ago, they were revered on the island of Cyprus, which was infested with snakes. But the black cat is also the ally of witches. Its saliva mixed with snake venom makes a formidable poison. And with its remains, the apothecary concocted remedies for ulcers. When its hair stands on end, it's as satanic as you can imagine. As an ingredient for strange potions, the black cat has its place in all the grimoire. Old legends say that witches could transform into cats up to 9 times. Just as the cat in ancient Egypt, who had 9 lives.
The farm's attic is inhabited by a bird that appreciates the presence of humans, but only from a distance. The barn owl has a schedule that is completely out of step with that of the farm owners. She wakes up when they go to sleep. She's discreet, perfectly quiet when she flies. A pale ghost hovering above the rooftops. those who have the chance to observe the barn owl, also known as the White Lady, up close are fascinated by its beauty. Michel Ribet has installed a nest box in an attic. Thanks to this large box set up as a miniature photo studio, he can admire this bird, which is unlike any other, without disturbing it.
Animals that have suffered due to human stupidity are animals that don't belong to our world. We belong to the world of day. These animals belong to the world of night. Its whitish silhouette will vanish into the night, as if a mirage had occurred. When it melts into the night, in a very intense night, it disappears all at once without anyone knowing where it's going.
This owl, which waits until night to go out and get close to its victims without a sound, has been transformed into a bird of misfortune by our imagination.
It sounds like a scream from the afterlife. It's coming from a bird we're scared of. The White Lady, Queen of Darkness. Blasted owl, haunted by fear as soon as night comes. You've got a bad reputation. Like harbingers of doom, you announce death, bird of misfortune. You're still very useful. Without you, mice and voles would abound in the crops. But it's no good. Some humans still think you're a menace. You prowl while they sleep. You do business while they dream. You trade with witches and dance with them on the Sabbath, in the attic. Whatever you do, you're cursed. We only want you for ointments or spells. So, putting an owl's heart and right leg on a sleeping woman's breast will make her confess all her secrets. Flee, fly away, beautiful white lady, before you're nailed to a barn door.
To surprise its prey, the barn owl has two strategic assets: its silent flight and its exceptional hearing.
The barn owl is a true example of perfection. Nature has equipped it with a variably geometric facial mask.
As the openings of its two ears are asymmetrical, it distinguishes the exact origin of the slightest rustle. Even if they only emit ultrasound, voles are sure to be spotted, and only by ear. A couple of barn owls catch 3,000 to 4,000 rodents per year. This means fewer pests in cultivated fields. This makes the farmers very happy. Its box has been turned into a love nest. As a token of love, here's prey offered by the male to the female. This is exactly what's needed to seal the union, and to consummate it right away. The barn owls devote their whole lives to each other with unfailing loyalty. It's March now. The long winter still whitens the countryside. At this time of year, talkative magpies gather in the trees where they sleep and chatter all day long. This gregarious behavior guarantees them safety. The whole group can give the alarm if a predator, cat or black crow attacks, and join forces to repel it. The magpie communities obviously gather where they find food. In times of famine, it will preferably be in the city. The temperature's milder and there's more food for them. The magpie has bad press. It's said to be sneaky, evil, and thieving, which puts it at the top of the list of pests.
Pest? Me? Huh, the humans made this up. And to think I love their company so much. But I should rather treat them with suspicion. The only harmless humans are those who stay still in the gardens. At least they let me chat to them. Don't you want to play with me? So it seems. Well, I'll just go eat some very ripe grapes. I get drunk and fall asleep from pecking. I dream of the singer I used to be in really old times. 3 intoxicated carousers had wanted to compete with the muses. They went to complain to Apollo. Angry, the god of the arts turned them into magpies who could only chatter. A strange noise woke me up. Is there a thief on the farm? Alert! Alert! No one's listening to me. To think I'm the one they call a thief. Sure, I like shiny stuff, but is that any reason to hate me? What did I ever do to deserve such awful revenge? I definitely have nothing people seem to like. Even the witches didn't want my flesh because I eat anything. They say all I was good for was to make a broth against melancholy. While under other skies, I was and still am sacred. In China, they call me the joyful magpie because my song erases sorrow. Well, from now on, why don't you call me the merry magpie? And love me.
Spring is in the air. The sleeping quarters of the chatty magpies are becoming increasingly sparse. No more groups, no more couples. Warming temperatures are a signal for all the birds. The jay starts building its nest. When it comes to magpies, males and females are equally zealous in assembling large twigs that will form a solid frame. The couple sometimes build several nests to fool predators before choosing the final location. The magpie's nest sits at the top of a tree so that it's inaccessible. Only one egg laying is done in the year, and everything is done to protect it. This funnel, made of branches, looks quite rudimentary, but this is just the start. It will soon be filled with mosses and lichens for comfort and a roof to protect the brood. With 2 lateral exits, very practical in case of danger. As soon as the foliage appears, the nest blends into the landscape. Behind this screen, the chicks will be practically invisible. The female lays between 4 and 9 eggs, which she hatches by herself, while the male's job is to provide her with food and defend the nest. Naturalist Daniel Auclair has turned his garden into an open-air observatory. In spring, there's always something happening.
I want to be close to nature. I make people aware of the world around them, because we know a lot about distant wildlife, but we don't know what's around us.
Everyone thinks the magpie is really bold. In fact, it's shyer than all the other birds in the garden. Daniel had to invent all kinds of ploys to observe it at will.
The magpie loves man, and man does not love the magpie. It's very suspicious. It's difficult to get close to. You have to know how to be cunning, because it doesn't like to be observed.
The most effective way to approach it is to stay quietly on the lookout in your car.
The objective is to identify the habits of the magpie couple. It is a very suspicious and susceptible bird, and despite me arriving with camouflage and a tent, this is a task which is not usual in its environment, and which the magpie detects immediately. It becomes impossible to film them perched on a walnut tree or a beech. It alarms others nearby and does not come closer.
But as soon as the owner of the place has his back turned, the magpies take advantage of everything his domain has to offer. A water trough is ideal for drinking or grooming. A compost pile is an interesting food source, and magpies know the difference between a human and a scarecrow. Their contribution to recycling is by no means trivial. Livestock silage is full of larvae, that the magpies are fond of, like many other birds. Although the magpie has a clear preference for insects, the variety of its menus classifies it as an omnivore. Among other things, it loves earthworms. A beautiful earthworm will make several meals. The magpie cuts it into pieces, eats one or two, and stores the rest in a hole for later. Between the barns, sheds and stables, the farm cat has a large domain full of nooks and crannies. He lives his life as he sees fit. A researcher at the University of Strasbourg traps farm cats to study their predatory behavior. Amélie Froyenweier places a GPS collar on her subjects to observe them from a distance. Amélie records the cat's movements, then matches the transmitter's signals with the images she has filmed.
All the cats are equipped with these collars, and I filmed them simultaneously so we can associate a signal with a behavior thanks to this video. The cat leaps, captures its prey, sleeps. With each acceleration or deceleration, I can understand what the animal's doing live, thanks to these signals.
The nesting period is a good time for this predator, the farm cat. In Europe, it's accused of killing large numbers of small animals, especially birds. It's even singled out as one of the major perpetrators in the disappearance of certain species. Around the farm, the fields form a vast field of exploration for the cat. In these wide open spaces, it follows in the footsteps of its ancestor, the African wildcat. Here it is in its savanna. Looking for prey awakens its feline instinct. All its senses come into action. Bird, mouse, mole, lizard. What will it find today? Its hearing is so sharp that it perceives the ultrasound emitted by rodents underground. Its eyesight is good, but its whiskers are even more useful to it when it hunts. Its whiskers are superb sensors. Stretched forward, they guide it, even at night, to its prey. The tactics of the cat, full of flexibility and finesse. Females with young go to their favorite hunting grounds several times a day. They come back to the farm as soon as they have a catch. This one has 4 kittens that will have their first contact with prey today. They'll learn to skin it. Other cats on the farm are good hunters. Man understood long ago how this predator could be useful to him. Its presence in the barn prevents invasions of mice, field mice, and other rodents. Even if it's well fed, a domestic cat sometimes attacks a rodent or a bird, driven by its predatory instinct. And if it plays with it, it's probably to relieve the pent-up stress from the hunt. After the game, farm cats eat their prey, which they need because they're not fed. In the barn owl nest box, the female laid an egg every 3 days. There are now 5 of them on this soft mattress. The female starts brooding as soon as she has laid her first egg. This means that the hatching is staggered over time. After 1 month of incubation, the 2 baby owls hatch. Like others, these young owls are born with their eyes closed. We can already see their beaks and their unique masks. At this stage, their mother never leaves them out in the open for too long. For the first 15 days, they need the warmth of her plumage. If they go too far away, she brings them back to the center of the nest, handling them with great care. During this period, the female rarely goes out. It's the male who feeds the family. All night long, he flies over the fields around the farm, looking for rodents. The prey is mainly for the young owls that need to quickly gain strength. 10 grams per day at the beginning. With each delivery, the male shows his affection to his mate, probably in anticipation of a second egg laying. The female only cares about keeping her chicks warm and giving them food. She doesn't eat herself. She'll lose a lot of weight during these few weeks. Patiently, she tears off tiny chunks of flesh and distributes them into the 5 little beaks. By 2 weeks, the owlets already weigh more than 100 grams. And they have a thick down that now protects them as well as their mother's wings. "20 days. Their facial mask is clearly visible, and the first feathers, the solid feathers of the wings, emerge from the down. Their appetite is also growing every day. From now on, both the male and female are kept busy feeding them. Fortunately, the summer is hot, causing rodents to proliferate. The 5 little owls will grow and flourish until the day they take off.
When there's an abundance of prey, the owl will take advantage of everything that nature has to offer for a while, so it can raise as many broods as possible, 2 or even 3 per year. But this is very rare. It's the only bird of prey to do that.
At the height of the summer season, with all the crops harvested, the cultivated fields are at rest, deserted. In the meadows and undergrowth, life abounds. All the species take advantage of the abundance of summer to produce future generations. The nests are full of promising broods, and animals can easily find their food. In short, life is easier. The majestic orchard cherry tree is particularly generous this year. Always on the lookout for the best chances, the magpies are the first to rush for cherries. They're quickly joined by the other birds from the area. Now that the cherries are ripe, the feast is in full swing. Magpies from elsewhere would love to join the banquet, but they're quickly driven out by the birds nesting on the estate. This tree belongs to them. A hoopoe returns from his insect hunt with a meal for his nest. The hoopoe has a strange habit. It deposits foul-smelling droppings at the entrance to its nest that effectively repel predators. In the magpie's nest, the chicks have just hatched. This is the start of an exhausting job for their parents, who have to work in pairs to satisfy this group of gluttons. The baby magpies already have abundant plumage. In 3 weeks, they'll take off, provided that they've eaten enough protein.
We had the chance to hear them a few days ago. We heard very high-pitched screams from the nests, and we thought it must be the little ones. But we didn't dare to approach them because we didn't want to disturb them.
You haven't seen them?
No.
You don't know how many there are?
2, 3, but it's difficult to say.
At the end of a pole, Daniel inspects the nest without disturbing the young.
The lady was right. There are 3, and they're already well covered. In the coming days, they'll explore the edge of the nest. It'll take about 4 to 5 days.
Perched not far from the nest, the parents encourage their chicks to fly away. But they don't seem in a hurry to take the plunge. But then one of them soon ventures out of the nest. This pair of buzzards is occupying a front row seat. They're keeping an eye on the little magpie, who's not yet very sure of its wings. Unfortunately, the young magpie messed it up. With a broken wing, it has no chance of surviving. There's nothing its parents can do for it. It becomes part of the circle of life. For the buzzards, patience has paid off. This is an opportunity they don't plan to miss. Birds of prey play an essential role as garbage collectors. And in this same ecosystem, the farm cat also has its place.
It has a role as an agricultural auxiliary. It hunts rodents, which may be considered a nuisance for farmers. It's a generalist and opportunist. It can hunt bats, birds, rodents, as well as reptiles or amphibians. It's always active and ready to hunt. It adapts to prey and nature to survive or shelter. It's a predator that has retained its hunting instinct and evolves like a wild predator in the environment.
A wild predator that multiplies at will. A cat has, on average, 5 kittens per litter and 2 litters per year. As long as they suckle their mother, the kittens stay close to her while gradually exploring their environment. The young cats are already stubbornly curious. The slightest opening invites them to explore. The cat licks her kittens for a long time, to calm them, reassure them, and impregnate them with her scent. A scent that she has deposited all over the place. This way, the kittens will find her trail every time they come back from an escapade. At 20 to 30 days of age, their mother takes them to another part of the farm. She had chosen to give birth to them in a protected place. This second home is better for their education. The kittens will be able to practice all kinds of things. All kittens love playing. Playing is learning to become a predator. Developing your agility and reflexes. Testing your limits. Practicing communicating with other cats. By playing, the kitten learns the best attack and defense postures for hunting, as well as in its relationships with its fellow creatures. One of the great moments in the life of a young farm cat is when it discovers the farmyard. It's populated by bipedal creatures that are really strange, even terrifying. This is an opportunity to practice the cat's #1 asset, knowing how to move in silence, without arousing the attention of these aliens or provoking their anger. In the nest box, the owls are almost unrecognizable. Their down gradually disappears as it's replaced by feathers. They no longer need the warmth of their mother, who is struggling with her partner to supply them. First prey of the night, the female offers it to the hungriest one and goes back to the hunt. The lucky chosen one jealously guards his vole. The others just have to wait for the next arrival. Now he's able to swallow his entire prey without cutting it up, just like an adult. The undigested bones and hair are later expelled in the form of pellets called rejection balls. At the foot of the nest box, Michel picks up these balls to show them to Jules, his grandson.
See, they're hard. I'll show you how to dissect them. We soak them in water.
On va les tremper dans de l'eau, d'accord? Donc je la prends.
If I open that rejection ball, look.
Si j'ouvre une peau de réjection,
it looks like a bird.
Eh ben voilà,
You've got it all figured out.
Tu deviens spécialiste de la chouette effraie.
You're becoming a barn owl expert.
Là, il y a des côtes.
There are feathers, hairs, ribs. You see the whole leg of the sparrow.
Oh là là.
Là, je pense que tu as trouvé
un beau truc.
Ouais.
These dissections are how we discover that the owl, like other owls, bring prey into the nest box to feed the young and themselves.
Pour nourrir les petits, mais aussi pour se nourrir le restant de l'année.
After 2 months in the nest, it's time for the eldest of the young owls to leave. Their plumage is ready, and they've accumulated enough strength and energy to fly away. After a few minutes of reflection, one of them decides. Its first wing flaps are a little clumsy, but it quickly figures out how to get up in the air. In the fields surrounding the farm, 2 very different species have developed a symbiotic relationship. The magpie, curious and unashamed, lands daily on the sheep's backs. This thick wool nests a lot of parasites that the magpie finds particularly tasty. The sheep tolerates this pecking that gets rid of unwelcome bugs. One gets a body treatment, the other a picnic. And everyone's happy.
La pie, elle vient nous provoquer.
The magpie is coming to provoke us. It's supposed to steal our keys. So let's go and get our keys. Because the path that will lead us to these keys will be very instructive.
Retrouver ces clés va être très enrichissant, quoi.
Independent cats, cheeky magpies, loyal owls. Farm animals are exciting to watch. Forget the absurd legends that made them witches, evildoers, or vectors of disease, and take the time to watch them go about their daily lives. They have an ability to adapt, a natural intelligence and wisdom that could inspire us.